referee Jack Taylor has ended the game, and West Germany have won the World Cup. There's the man who did it, Gerd Müller. The crowd rising to West Germany.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Philip Riccobono, and you're listening to the Sports English Podcast. This week, we'll have an interview coming up with Kirsten Wächter, an author living in Germany who is writing a book called The Beautiful Game, which will be available soon. Now, our latest book, Baseball English, you can get that at our website, sportsenglish.org, or it's available on Amazon. This month, actually, it's on sale with Amazon, and free shipping is always on our website. So, folks, let's get into the interview, and I'll see you on the other side. Folks, I am now joined by Kirsten Wächter, all the way from Germany, who is our author of an upcoming book entitled The Beautiful Game. Kirsten, welcome to the Sports English Podcast.
Thanks, Phil, for having me.
It's really great to have you here. So let's get into your background a little bit. If you could just run us through who you are, where you're from, and how you got into English teaching.
Thanks, Phil. So I am a professional business English teacher, and I teach also English for specific purposes. And because I get bored quite easily, I also write materials online and for print. And I do intercultural training and also translations. I've been doing this job for about 30 years now, and I do a lot of in-company training, and that is also what got me basically into football, because you wouldn't believe how many of my students are footballers. I should explain, I'm based in Germany, and in my area, we have a lot of top football teams. So I live in a football crazy or soccer crazy area anyway, and that helped a lot when it came to designing this book.
That's awesome. And I'm actually learning a lot from this too, because I come from a country that's football or soccer is maybe the fourth or fifth popular sport. I'm a big baseball nut. So I'm learning so much as the publisher working with you about the game. And I thank you for that. And I'm sure it's going to translate to students across the world. Now, you're a non-native English speaker. How much of that do you think is a benefit to you writing materials and being an English teacher, specifically in football?
I think I should explain that my motivation for the book was anyway that I really wanted to be able to talk about football in English the way I could do that in German. And it isn't just about the technical part. So you can learn the parts of the body and the strategy and the tactics, but it's also a lot about the emotions. You have to be able to express your emotions in another language. So I think that I have a very good understanding of what my learners really find difficult when they talk about something as emotional and technical as football. So from that perspective, because you really know, okay, they're gonna have difficulty with this, they won't understand this. They always wondered why the English say this, or why the British say this, or something like this, or why it's called soccer and football at the same time, for example. I think that's helped a lot to think about the process that you need when you want to write a book about such a popular but equally controversial topic.
Could you give us an example of a controversial topic related to this?
I think my sister put it in a very good way. She said, if you're going to write about a book about football, everybody will disagree on something you say, because so many people have their own opinions, like who's the greatest manager of all times, what's the best tactic. We have in Germany, we got something like 50 million national managers, because we all think we know better than the guy who's actually doing the job,
Monday
so
morning
it's so
quarterback,
debated.
yeah.
Exactly. I think you have that on every sport. I think you have that with like football in the States or baseball or something like this. But this is so controversial. And when you look at like comments, like live commentary, where the spectators come in and say, oh, like they should play like this, they should play like this, nobody ever agrees. So, and then you really walk into the lion's den where they're going to write a book about it, because you have to be very careful about the wording and what would be the focus of the book, and how can you make it enjoyable and attractive to a huge number of supporters and fans out there. We shouldn't forget there are more than 3 billion people, Phil, who call themselves football fans, from the hardcore fans who go to every match, who know the whole squad by heart, to the people who say, well, I watch it when the national team plays the World Cup. And that's something that just makes it very difficult, but also very fascinating to put it into a book.
It's the number one sport in the world. I love it. I'm trying to get more American comrades into it, but I really fell in love with it. I want to ask you about your first match, and then I'll tell you about the first match that I attended. So, what was the first match that you ever attended? And was it at that point that you got hooked on the sport, or you had been hooked on it before?
The first match I attended live was actually Bundesliga. That's our top league here in Germany. Bundesliga match between Mönchengladbach, Borussia Mönchengladbach. That's the team my father always supported, and Krefeld, which is like another team in that area. That's also because my father is actually from that Rhine area. But that was not the decisive match that made me get me hooked on football. The decisive match was the World Cup 1974, which Germany won in the end. My dad bought a color TV set for that tournament.
Oh, cool.
We watched every single match. Every time the Germans scored a goal, he did a somersault in the living room. It was amazing.
Oh my
and it was
gosh.
like, okay.
Do you have any footage of this?
No, unfortunately not. But that was it. You know, and then in the end, Germany won. The whole neighborhood was like out on the streets and everything. And so it was really about the emotions. And then we were an all-girl household, which helped a lot. So my older sister and me were taken to the games. And it wasn't like girls don't like football or something like this. So that was really great. I never played myself, but I've been really like a key football supporter since the age of 6.
Did you play as a youngster or growing up or even becoming an adult?
Only street football. That's what we did. We played on the streets or something like this. But so football played a big role in our family. And so even like taking sides. So everybody in my family supports a different team. So match days are a really interesting thing. Like, don't go into this. Like, you know, I always hope for a draw when our teams play each other, because otherwise we won't have a nice Sunday with a family or something like this.
My first match was when Beckham made his debut for the LA Galaxy. It had to be
great,
2000. Yeah. And I was hooked because just well, first off, I was, living in Los Angeles area, and here's all these British people, or mostly probably British people coming over to support Chelsea. Not a lot of people maybe know this, but the first match that Beckham played in was a friendly against Chelsea. And I think LA lost 1-0. But anyhow, he came into the game late. He just signed the build-up, the crescendo. It was just amazing. I was hooked. The fans are so passionate. I'd equate it to Japanese baseball. The fans are hanging on to their every pitch. They've got chants, they've got cheers, they've got songs. Very similar to soccer football in Europe. Yeah. So I encourage people to do both.
Yeah, I do see the appeal, but I think what helped US football or soccer even more was actually when you really had European clubs buying American soccer clubs as a talent pool. And now you have American players in Europe playing for the big teams, getting that experience, getting that knowledge, building on their skills, and then going back and actually adding that to the national team. And even the men's national team hasn't been performing that bad. I mean, the women are far better, of course. And they're like a record holder of the World Cup and everything. They got great players, but they also motivate a whole generation. So you see the inspiration that comes there. And then the men now have to try to be competitive. But I think they did a better job starting the major soccer league the second time. So I hope, and I know we're going to have a new women's soccer league. There are so many. I read about this women's club that's supported by Natalie Portman, like all these Hollywood actresses who put money together. So you see there's also like a bigger cultural support. Football has changed its role. It plays in society a lot. We see that in Britain, we see that in Germany, but we also see that in the US. So where can be a great motor for change as well. And that's also something I think you just get with a sports that's worldwide so popular, so that it can really move things.
All right, folks. Well, there you have it. What a dynamic guest in Kirsten. Well, guess what, folks? She's coming back for part 2, so stay tuned for that. Well, folks, just to let you know, we are Sports English Press, and we have several books coming out if you're learning to learn English through sports. We have a book coming out about rugby English with an author called Glenn Brown, who's from New Zealand, and also a rugby team consultant in Japan. He'll be co-authoring that with myself. We have a book called Sports English coming out with a professor from South Korea called Stephen Feigenbaum. And of course, how can we forget Kirsten's book, The Beautiful Game, English for Football or Soccer. And look out for those on our website, sportsenglish.org, and Amazon. Well, that's it for now. I'm Dr. Philip Riccobono at the Sports English Podcast Studios. Take care. We'll see you next time.